She needed an escape and offered herself for a seat on his ship. The neon signs of Outpost 7 cast purple shadows across the landing pad where Captain James Forrest supervised the loading of his ship the Nova. And the aging cargo vessel had seen better days, but her reinforced hull and enhanced engines made her perfect for runs through the disputed territories. James wiped sweat from his brow, the humid air of this border world making every movement feel like swining through soup. Last crate. Captain called his engineer Marcus. Securing the cargo bolts, magnetic locks, medical supplies for the center colonies, all accounted for. James nodded, checking his manifest, when a voice cut through the evening air. Captain Forrest. He turned to find a woman standing at the edge of the loading zone. Her silver hair seemed to absorb the neon light, and her dark eyes held an intensity that made him pause. She wore a simple flight suit, but something about her posture suggested military training. "I need passage to the Centauri colonies," she said, her voice carrying an accent he couldn't quite place. "I can pay." "Not a passenger ship," James replied, automatically turning back to his manifest. "I'm offering triple the standard rate," she countered, stepping closer. "My name is Raya. I have skills that could benefit your crew during the journey." James studied her more carefully. "Skills? Engineering, navigation, combat training. I'm not looking for a luxury cruise, Captain. I need to reach the colonies, and I'm willing to work for my passage." Marcus shot James a warning look. They'd had trouble with passengers before, but something in Raya's direct gaze caught his attention. She wasn't begging or trying to charm her way aboard. She was offering the straight business deal. "Why so eager to reach Centauri?" James asked. "My reasons are my own," she replied evenly. "But I give you my word I won't bring trouble to your ship." James laughed. "In my experience, people who say that usually do exactly the opposite. Then let me prove otherwise." Raya pulled out a data crystal. "My credentials, full background check, security clearance, engineering certifications. I'm not asking you to trust BL." James took the crystal, inserting it into his portable reader. The document seemed legitimate, impressive even, but it was the combat certification that caught his eye. "Having someone with those skills might prove useful on this run." "Triple rate, you said?" He met her gaze. "Plus work duties." She nodded once sharply. "Marcus," James called, "show our new crew member to the spare quarters. We launch in 30 as are followed." Marcus up the loading ramp. James couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just signed up for more than a simple passenger run. There was something in her eyes, a hint of desperation beneath the professional exterior. But the medical supplies needed to reach Centauri, and having an extra trained hand aboard might make the difference in the disputed zones. The Nova Dawn lifted off an hour later, her engines burning bright against the purple sky. In his captain's chair, James reviewed Raya's credentials. Again, everything checked out, but years of running the border routes had taught him that official documents only told part of the story through the ship's internal cameras. He watched her efficiently stow her gear in the small cabin, her movements precise and economical, definitely military trained. Despite what her papers claimed, the question was, what was she running from? Or running to? They cleared atmosphere without incident, the ship's course laid in for the first jump point. James switched off the security feed and focused on their flight path. Whatever Raya's story was, he had a feeling he'd find out soon enough. The disputed territories had a way of revealing everyone's true nature, whether they wanted it revealed or not. The Nova Dawn accelerated into the darkness between stars, carrying her crew and her mysterious passenger toward whatever destiny awaited them in the vast expanse of space. James could only hope he hadn't just made a decision that would get them all killed. The Nova Dawn glided silently through the disputed territories, her hull reflecting the distant starlight. 2 days into their journey, James watched from the bridge as Rhea expertly recalibrated the navigation array, her movements quick and precise. "You weren't exaggerating about your skills," he commented, noting how she'd improved their engine efficiency by 12%. Since coming aboard, R didn't look up from her work. "I never exaggerate, Captain. It leads to misunderstandings." A warning light flashed on the main console, drawing both their attention. James leaned forward, scanning the readout. "Distress signal. Civilian transport about 3 hours off our course." "Pirates?" Raya asked, already pulling up tactical displays or a trap, James agreed. But if it's legitimate, he let the thought hang out here, ignoring a distress call was as good as murder. The medical supplies, Raya reminded him, they're needed on Centauri. We've got time. In the schedule for a short detour, James studied the signal pattern. What's your tactical assessment? Raya's fingers danced across the console, analyzing the data. Signals genuine, older encryption that pirates typically can't replicate. Life support failing, minimal power readings. She paused. If they're out there much longer, they won't survive. James made his decision. Plot an intercept course. Wake Marcus will need engineering ready. As they approached the stranded vessel, James noticed how Rhea instinctively positioned herself at the weapons station. Her eyes scanned space around them. With practiced deficiency, the transport came into view, a small passenger vessel, its lights flickering weakly. No visible damage, but its engines were cold. Life signs, James asked for. Rhea confirmed weak but stable. Environmental systems are nearly depleted. They executed a careful docking maneuver. The Nova Dawn's airlock sealing against the transport's emergency hatch. James assembled a boarding party himself, Rhea and Marcus. With his repair kit, stay sharp, he warned as the airlock cycled. Even legitimate distress calls can turn ugly out here. The transport's interior was dark, emergency lighting casting red shadows across empty corridors. They found the survivors in the ship's common area, an elderly couple, their adult daughter, and the transport's pilot, all huddled in environmental suits. Thank the stars, the pilot said, his voice weak. Our drive core failed. Thought we were done for. While Marcus checked the ship systems, James helped the family aboard the Nova. Rhea stayed alert, her hand never far from her concealed weapon. Multiple system failures. Marcus reported someone sabotaged their drive core recently. James turned to the pilot, but Rhea was faster. In one fluid motion, she had her weapon drawn and aimed at the man's chest. The core sabotage was elegant, almost undetectable. But you made one mistake. You used a signature virus, military grade. The pilot's demeanor changed. Instantly his hand moved toward his boot, but Rhea was quicker. A single stun shot dropped him to the deck. Pirates? James asked, securing the unconscious man. Worse, Rhea replied, pulling a military ID from the pilot's jacket. Cardinal enforcer. They used distress calls to capture ships carrying medical supplies. The families are usually legitimate passengers, hostages. To ensure cooperation, James felt cold anger rise in his chest. They prey on people trying to help. It's effective, Rhea said grimly. The Cardinal control most of the medical supply routes now. Few independent captains dare to run these routes anymore. That's why you wanted passage on my ship. James realized you're investigating them. Rhea was quiet for a moment. Let's get these people somewhere safe. Then we can discuss why I'm really here. They transferred the family to the Nova Day's guest quarters. Marcus rigged the transport systems to transmit a quarantine warning. It would keep other ships from falling into the same trap later in the ship's galley. Rhea finally spoke. I was colonial intelligence. Was until discovered the cartel had infiltrated the highest levels of the medical distribution network. When I tried to report it, I found out how deep the corruption went. So you ran, James said. Tactical retreat, she corrected. I have proof enough to expose the entire operation, but I need to get it to people I trust in the center colonies. James considered this. That's why you offered triple rate. You knew we might run into trouble. I needed a captain who wouldn't look the other way. She met his gaze. Your reputation preceded you, Captain Forrest. Not many independents still run medical supplies through the disputed territories. Someone has to, he said. Simply. A small smile crossed her face. Exactly. The Nova Dawn continued its journey, now carrying not just medical supplies, but evidence that could break the cartel's grip on countless worlds. James watched the stars streak by, knowing they'd likely face more trouble before reaching Centauri. But looking at Rhea, her silver hair catching the starlight as she worked at her station, he realized he didn't mind. Some fights were worth the risk. The discovery came during a routine maintenance check. Marcus had detected an unusual energy signature emanating from one of their medical supply crates, and James ordered an immediate inspection in the cargo Holdry crouched beside the open container, her scanner hovering over what appeared to be an ancient artifact, nestled among the medical supplies. "This shouldn't be here," she breathed, studying the crystalline structure that pulsed with a faint blue light. "This is what they're really after." James knelt. "The site are not just medical supplies." Then Norie's fingers traced the air above the crystal. "Careful not to touch it. This is precursor technology. The Cardinal must have hidden it in the shipment planning to intercept it using their distress call. Trap the artifact responded to her proximity. Its glow-intensifying symbols etched on its surface began to shift and change, casting ethereal patterns across the cargo BS walls. "What exactly are we carrying?" Rhea James asked, his voice low. She hesitated, then reached into her boot, retrieving a small data crystal that matched the artifact's glow. "This is why I really needed passage. The Cardinal aren't just controlling medical supplies, they're searching for precursor sites, using their shipping network to smuggle artifacts." The ancient race, Marcus whistled, "thought they were just stories." "Very real," Rhea corrected, "and their technology could change everything or destroy it in the wrong hands. I've been tracking their dig sites, following the artifact smuggling routes. But this," she gestured to the crystal, "this is bigger than anything I've seen." A sudden tremor ran through the ship. James grabbed his comm bridge report. "Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace," came the response. "Cal signatures, they're boxing us in. They must have tracked the artifact's energy signature," Rhea said, quickly resealing the crate. "Captain, I'm sorry, I never meant to bring this level of trouble to your ship." James was already moving. "Marcus, get those engines hot." "Rhea, you're with me on the bridge. We're not letting them take this ship." They raced through the corridors as another impact rocked the Novan. In the bridge, tactical displays showed 5 Cal vessels moving to surround them. "They're not trying to destroy us," Rhea observed, sliding into the weapons station. "They want the artifact intact." "Then let's use that," James said, his hands flying over the controls. "Marcus, how much power can you give the engines?" "She'll hold together for about 3 minutes at 120%, came the engineer's voice. "After that, no promises." James grinned. 3 minutes is all we need." Rhea, "Target their engines. Only make it look good, but don't them completely." She raised an eyebrow. "Plain wounded prey?" "Something like that. When I give the signal, transfer all power from weapons to the forward shields." The Nova Dawn shuddered under another hit. James waited, watching the Cal ships tighten their formation. Just when they thought they had their prize cornered, now he yanked the controls, sending the ship into a spiral that no sane pilot would attempt. The Cal vessels scattered, trying to avoid collision. In that moment of chaos, James fired the overtaxed engines, freeing the needle between 2 ships. The Novan screamed in protest as they burst through the blockade behind them. The cartel ship scrambled to regroup, but the precious seconds of confusion had given them the lead they needed. "Multiple hyperspace signatures ahead," Rhea reported. "They got reinforcements waiting." "Perfect," James said, plotting a course directly toward the new arrival. "Perfect." Marcus's voice crackled with disbelief. "Trust me." James's eyes were fixed on the approaching ships. Rhea remembered that artifact's energy signature. "Can you amplify it?" Understanding dawned on her face. "The radiation would mask our jump signature and give them a dozen false readings to chase." Rhea's fingers danced across her console, manipulating the artifact's output. The bridge lights flickered as power redirected to her station. "Ready," she announced. "But this will drain our reserves. We'll only get one shot at this." James nodded. "Marcus, on my mark. Give me everything the engines have left." Rhea, "Scatter that signal wide." The reinforcement ships loomed larger. "Weapons charge." James counted down in his head, waiting for exactly the right moment. "Mark." The Nova Dawn leaped forward, her engines howling. Rhea released the amplified energy signature, creating a cascade of false readings. As the cartel ships turned to chase the phantom signals, James executed a blind hyperspace jump. Dangerous, but their only chance. They emerged hours later in a remote sector, systems running on minimal power, but they were alive, and the artifact was secure in the aftermath as Marcus worked to restore their engines. James found Rhea in the cargo hold, studying the artifact. "Again, you know what it is, don't you?" he asked quietly. She nodded slowly. "It's a key part of something much bigger. The precursors left more than just ruins, Captain. They left a legacy, one that could either save humanity or give the Cardinal power beyond imagination. and you're trying to keep that from happening. I'm trying to make sure it reaches the right people." She looked up at him. "The question is, are you still willing to help knowing what's really at stake?" James considered. Everything. They just survived the deception, the chase, the impossible escape. But he also remembered how Rhea had fought to protect his ship, his crew. "I signed up to deliver medical supplies to people who need them," he said finally. "Seems to me keeping this out of Sealand serves the same purpose, making sure people get help, not harm." Rhea's relief was visible. "Thank you, don't thank me yet," he warned. "Something tells me those cartel ships won't give up easily, and we've still got a long way to Centauri." The artifact pulsed between them, its light casting shadows that seemed to hold ancient secrets, whatever they'd stumbled into. James knew their journey had just become far more complex than a simple cargo run. But looking at Rhea, seeing the determination in her eyes, he couldn't bring himself to regret his decision. Some cargo was worth any risk to protect, especially when it came with a partner. He was beginning to trust the Nova Dawn's warning systems, blared to life, yanking James from a fitful sleep. He rushed to the bridge, finding Rhea already at her station, her face illuminated by the red emergency lights. "Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace," she reported. "Tyrrell cartel signatures, but different from before. These are military grade." James slid into his chair, assessing the tactical display. 7 ships arranged in an attack formation. He didn't recognize. They're not even trying to hide their intentions anymore. They can't afford to. Rhea said, her fingers flying over the weapons console. "That artifact we're carrying, it's not just valuable, it's essential. The cartel's entire operation depends on finding the precursor site. It leads to the comm system," crackled a cold, authoritative voice. Filled the bridge. "Novan, this is Commander of Special Operations. You are carrying stolen military property. Surrender now, and we'll ensure your crew's safety." James glanced at Rhea. "Friend of yours?" Fane. Her voice was hard. "He's the one who tried to have me killed when I discovered the truth, corrupt to the core, but with enough rank to make it stick." Another blast rocked the ship. Marcus's voice came through the internal cal. "Captain, engines are at 85%. Whatever you're planning, we need to do it fast." James studied the tactical display. Mind racing. The cartel ships had them surrounded, but their formation had one weakness. They were protecting their flagship, this vessel, keeping it at the center. "Rhea," he said slowly, "that artifact's energy signature, could you modify it? Make it look like we're trying to mask a weapon buildup." She caught on immediately. "Make them think we're planning a suicide run on their flagship." Her hands were already moving across the controls. "It'll drain our reserves, but yes, do it." James opened the ship wide. "Common Marcus, I need everything you can give. The forward shields. We're going to do something stupid." "My favorite kind of plan," the engineer replied cheerfully. The Nova Dawn's engines to life as James plotted their course, a direct vector towards flagship. The cartel ships reacted exactly as he hoped, tightening their formation to protect their commander. "Energy signature modified," Rhea reported. "They'll read it as a critical reactor buildup detonation, estimated in 3 minutes. Novan, this is your final warning." Fane's voice had lost its composure. "Stand down or be destroyed." Interesting choice of words, James muttered, then hit the comm. "This ship is rigged to blow. Commander, want to test how much of your fleet goes with us?" The cell ships began adjusting their positions, trying to maintain their protective screen while staying outside the potential blast radius. It created exactly the gap James had been waiting for. "Now," he shouted. Rhea diverted all power to the engines as James executed a maneuver that should have torn the ship apart. They dove down relative to the fleet's plane, then cut engines completely. The sudden absence of their energy signature made them virtually invisible for crucial seconds. The cartel ships, still focused on protecting against a frontal assault, took precious moments to realize their target had vanished. By then, the Novan was already powering up behind them, its real weapons locked on the flagship's engines. "Commander," James broadcast, "here's how this goes. We disable your ship, jump to safety, and you explain to your cartel friends how you lost their prize, or we all find out. If your shields can handle a point-blank barrage." Silence filled the comm. "Then you're making a mistake. You don't understand what's really at stake." "Actually," Rhea cut in, "I understand perfectly. That's why you'll never get your hands on it." She fired the 4th could respond precise shots, crippled the flagship's engines and communications array. The other cartel ships suddenly, without leadership, hesitated just long enough. Marcus, now James, called the Nova Dawn's engines flared to life, channeling every bit of power they had left into a desperate burst of speed. They cleared the cartel formation as chaos erupted. Behind them, ships colliding in their attempts to pursue plotting emergency jump. Raya announced, her voice tight. With concentration, we'll only get about half our intended distance before we need to drop out. Better than staying here, James replied, watching the tactical display as their pursuers struggled to regroup. Ready when you are. The stars blurred around them as they made their jump, leaving the cell fleet far behind. When they dropped back to normal space hours later, they were deep in an uncharted sector. Damage report, James asked finally, allowing himself to breathe normally. Engines at 40%, Marcus replied. Shields basically non-existent, but we're alive, which is more than I expected. Ria was silent, staring at her console. James moved to stand behind her. What is it? The artifact, she said quietly. During the battle it changed. Look, the crystalline structure was pulsing with new patterns, now projecting what looked like coordinates into the air above it. It's responding to something, Ria explained. Something in this sector, James. I think we might have accidentally found what the cartel have been searching for. James studied the coordinates, then looked at his crew. They were exhausted, their ship was damaged, and they still had medical supplies to deliver, but the cartel would keep coming. And now they might have stumbled onto something that could change everything. Marcus, he called. How long to get basic repairs done? 6 hours for essential systems, came the reply. Why? James met Ria's gaze, seeing the same mix of determination and curiosity he felt. Because I think we need to make a slight detour. Something tells me whatever's out here is too important to ignore. Raya smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. I was hoping you'd say that. As they began repairs, the artifact continued its mysterious pulsing, calling them toward whatever ancient secret waited in the depths of space. Their battle for tomorrow had evolved into something far greater than any of them had imagined. But looking at his crew, Marcus's unwavering loyalty, Ria's fierce determination, James knew they'd face whatever came next together. Some discoveries were worth any risk, especially with the right people by your side. The Nova Dawn's warning systems blared to life, yanking James from a fitful sleep. He rushed to the bridge, finding Ria already at her station, her face illuminated by the red emergency lights. Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace, she reported. Cal signatures, but different from before. These are military-grade vessels. James slid into his chair, assessing the tactical display. 7 ships arranged in an attack formation he didn't recognize. They're not even trying to hide the intentions anymore. They can't afford to. Raya said, her fingers flying over the weapons console. That artifact we're carrying, it's not just valuable, it's essential. The cartel's entire operation depends on finding the precursor site. It leads to the comm system, crackled a cold, authoritative voice, filled the bridge. Nova Dawn, this is Commander F of Special Operations. You are carrying stolen military property, sir, now, and we ensure your crew's safety. James glanced at Raya. Friend of yours, Fane. Her voice was hard. He's the one who tried to have me killed when I discovered the truth. Corrupt to the core, but with enough rank to make it stick. Another blast rocked the ship. Marcus's voice came through the internal calm. Captain, engines are at 85%. Whatever you're planning, we need to do it fast. James studied the tactic ICAL display. Mind racing, the cartel ships had them surrounded, but their formation had one weakness. They were protecting their flight ship, this vessel, keeping it at the center. Raya, he said slowly, that artifact's energy signature. Could you modify it, make it look like we're trying to mask a weapon buildup? She caught on immediately. Make them think we're planning a suicide run on their flagship. Her hands were already moving across the controls. It'll drain our reserves. But yes, do it. James opened the ship wide. Marcus, I need everything you can give. The forward shields. We're going to do something stupid, my favorite kind of plan, the engineer replied cheerfully. The Nova Dawn's engines roared to life as James plotted their course, a direct vector toward its flagship, the cartel. Ships reacted exactly as he'd hoped, tightening their formation to protect their commander energy signature. Modified Rhea reported they'll read it as a critical reactor buildup detonation. Estimated in 3 minutes. Nova Dawn. This is your final warning. F's voice had lost its composure. Stand down or be destroyed. Interesting choice of words, James muttered, then hit the comm. This ship is rigged to blow. Commander, want to test how much of your fleet goes with us? The cell ships began adjusting their positions, trying to maintain their protective screen while staying outside the potential blast radius it created. Exactly the gap James had been waiting for now, he shouted. Rhea diverted all power to the engines. As James executed a maneuver that should have torn the ship apart, they dove down relative to the fleet's plane, then cut engines completely. The sudden absence of their energy signature made them virtually invisible for crucial seconds. The cell ships, still focused on protecting against a frontal assault, took precious moments to realize their target had vanished. By then, the Nova Dawn was already powering up behind them, its real weapons locked on the flagship's engines. Commander, James broadcast, here's how this goes. We disable your ship, jump to safety, and you explain to your Cardinal friends how you lost their prize, or we all find out if your shields can handle a point-blank barrage. Silence filled the comm. Then you're making a mistake. You don't understand what's really at stake. Actually, Rhea cut in. I understand perfectly. That's why it'll never get your hands on it. She fired before it could respond. Precise shots crippled the flagship's engines and communications array. The other Carol ships, suddenly without leadership, hesitated just long enough. Marcus is now, James called the Nova Dawn's engines flared to life, channeling every bit of power they had left into a desperate burst of speed. They cleared the cal formation as chaos erupted behind them, ships colliding in their attempts to pursue. Plotting emergency jump, Rhea announced, her voice tight with concentration. We'll only get about half our intended distance before we need to drop out. Better than staying here, James replied, watching the tactical display as their pursuers struggled to regroup. Ready when you are. The stars blurred around them as they made their jump, leaving the CLE fleet far behind. When they dropped back to normal space hours later, they were deep in an uncharted sector. Damage report, James asked, finally allowing himself to breathe normally. Engines at 40%. Marcus replied, shields basically non-existent, but we're alive, which is more than I expected. Rhea was silent, staring at her console. James moved to stand behind her. What is it? The artifact, she said quietly. During the battle it changed look. The crystalline structure was pulsing with new patterns now, projecting what looked like coordinates into the air above it. It's responding to something, Rhea explained. Something in this sector, James. I think we might have accidentally found what the Cardinal had been searching for. James studied the coordinates, then looked at his crew. They were exhausted. Their ship was damaged, and they still had medical supplies to deliver, but the Cardinal would keep coming. And now they might have stumbled onto something that could change everything. Marcus, he called. How long to get basic repairs done? 6 hours for essential systems, came the reply. Why? James met Rhea's gaze, seeing the same mix of determination and curiosity he felt. Because I think we need to make a slight detour. Something tells me whatever's out here, it is too important to ignore. Rhea smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. I was hoping you'd say that. As they began repairs, the artifact continued its mysterious pulsing, calling them toward whatever ancient secret waited in the depths of space. Their battle for tomorrow had evolved into something far greater than any of them had imagined. Following the coordinates revealed by the artifact led the Nova Dawn to an uncharted system with a dying red giant. Their damage chip limped through the debris field that surrounded a massive structure, clearly precursor in origin. It's a research station, Rhea breathed, studying the sensor readings. But the energy patterns, I'd never seen anything like this. The structure spanned several kilometers, its crystalline architecture reminiscent of the artifact they carried. As they approached, sections of the station began to illuminate, responding to the artifact's presence. Docking protocols are initiating automatically, James noted, watching as a massive bay opened before them. Whatever this place is, it wants us here. Marcus's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, the artifact's energy signature is spiking. It's interfacing with the station. Somehow they guided the Nova Dawn into the ancient dock of the ship's systems, interfacing seamlessly with technology that predated human civilization as the bay sealed behind. Them atmosphere readings turned green breathable air, Raya confirmed surprise. Evident in her voice, the station's life support is still functioning after all this time. James assembled an exploration team himself, Rhea and Marcus with his engineering equipment, as they stepped onto the station lights activated along the corridors guiding their way deeper into the structure. This architecture, Marcus marveled, scanning the crystalline walls. It's not just beautiful, it's functional. The entire station is one interconnected organism. They follow the illuminated path to what appeared to be a central chamber. The artifact pulsed stronger with each step until finally removed it from its container. It floated from her hands, drifting to a pedestal in the chamber center. The room exploded with light and information holographic displays, filling the air around them, with streams of data in the precursor language. It's a library, Raya whispered, her eyes wide. No more than that, it's a medical database. The precursors, they weren't just advanced technologically. They were masters of biological engineering. James watched as she interacted with the displays, her colonial intelligence training allowing her to decipher parts of the ancient language. What kind of medical knowledge? Cures, she said, her voice filled with awe. Treatments for diseases we thought incurable, cellular regeneration, life extension. This is why the Cardinal wanted the artifact so badly. With this knowledge, they could control not just medical supplies but life itself. Marcus whistled low. No wonder they were willing to throw an entire fleet at us. A soft chime echoed through the chamber and new displays appeared, these showing human medical data alongside precursor treatments. It's not just a database, Raya realized. The station is actively analyzing current human medical needs. It wants to help. James stepped closer to her, watching the streams of information flow. Can we transmit this to your contacts in the colonies? Better than that, she gestured to a series of crystalline data cores. We can take copies. The station is offering to share its knowledge. The Cardinal won't stop coming, Marcus warned. Once they realize what we found, then we make sure this knowledge gets to everyone. James decided not just the colonies, every world, every settlement. If everyone has access to these treatments, the Cal lose their power. Raya finished. She turned to face him, her eyes bright with purpose. But it won't be easy. They'll try to stop us, try to maintain their control. James found himself reaching for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. Good thing you've got a stubborn cargo captain and his crew on your side. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken emotions and possibilities. Then Marcus cleared his throat. A captain. The station showing something else, some kind of warning. They turned to see new displays, tactical data showing multiple ships entering the system. The Cardinal fleet had tracked them. How long until they reach us? James asked. Already calculating options. 20 minutes, maybe less, Marcus replied. But the station, it's offering to help. More displays activated showing the station's defensive systems dormant but intact. Rhea's hands flew over the controls, interfacing with the ancient technology. We can't let them take this place, she said firmly. Too many lives depend on what we found here. James squeezed her hand once before letting go. Then we make our stand. Marcus, get back to the Nova and prepare for emergency launch. Raya, she met his gaze steadily. I know the station systems. Now I can coordinate our defense from here. I'm staying with you, James. She stepped closer, her hand coming up to rest on his chest. If something goes wrong, he covered her hand with his own. Nothing's going wrong. We didn't come this far to fail. Now the station's warning systems pulsed again. The Cardinal fleet was getting closer, but standing there with Raya surrounded by knowledge that could save countless lives. James felt no fear. They had found something worth fighting for, not just the medical discoveries, but each other. Besides, he added with a slight smile, I still need to collect that triple-rate passage fee you promised. Raya laughed, the sound echoing through the ancient chamber. I think I can offer something better than credits. Now, as they turned to prepare for battle, the station's lights pulsed around them like a heartbeat. Whatever came next, they would face it together. A cargo captain and his mysterious passenger, whose shared journey had become something far more precious than either had imagined. The future awaited, full of both danger and promise, but for now, in this moment between discovery and conflict, They had found their hearts among the stars.